Well, let's start the news with breaking news, Will, and the will he, won't he around Manu Tuilagi leaving the Leicester Tigers. That much was for certain, but all the rumour mill was underway about his move potentially to the Sale Sharks. And just as we began recording this, news has come through confirmation that he will be joining Steve Diamond's side at the AJ Bell Stadium. Worst kept secret for you, or did you get a surprise from this one?
Well, I'm trying to think of a dreadful thing to say, but not a lot gets you out of bed. But there we are. We've got you out of bed. We're in your bedroom. Fearing that Manu Tuilagi has moved to Sale Sharks. Worst kept secret. Do you know what? I don't think it was a worst kept secret. I think a lot of people had anticipated understanding at 29 years old. So much to delve into. So let me try and keep it really simple. At 29 years old, we assumed if he left Leicester Tigers, he would go abroad for a big payday. That if he was not prepared to accept the 25% reduction that Leicester Tigers had asked for across the board. Okay, let's be simplistic about it. Let's say he was on £500,000 a year, 25% reduction, 125,000 down to 375,000. Now France gets really interesting. Now Japan gets really interesting. Bowden Barrett has gone to Japan on a reported $750,000 US dollar for 6 months worth of trading. So you're beginning to see the sorts of numbers that are floated over there. We know that in the top 14 in France, even though they are starting to put a lid on the pressure cooker and the inflationary pressures of player wages, that he could have commanded 800,000 euros, reasonable exchange rate, that's 650, 750. And you begin to think, yeah, that's where he might go. He'd have to forego his England career if he'd gone to Japan or France, which, by the way, was a huge sum of money. It might get cut, but it was 25 grand a game. He'd expect to play all 10 of them. You've added £250,000 there. So you've almost topped up what you might have got if you'd gone to France and Japan. But the cuts were starting to come, and you always felt at some stage, his brothers have played in France, that this might be the move. Staying in England keeps his England career open, keeps a British and Irish Lions tour really on the cards, because Gatland will really want players to be playing international rugby in the next 12 months in order for him to select them to go to South Africa. And you start to think, surely the Premiership clubs have just reduced their wage bill. So who on earth can afford Manu Tuilagi? So he goes to Sale, and I go, I don't get how this is possible. Then I'm reading, I admit it's from the Telegraph. I haven't had it confirmed. I've tried to ring a couple of journalists saying he's going on a massive pay cut. And I'm like, this doesn't quite make any sense, other than he either A, really fell out with Leicester Tigers and just wasn't prepared to re-sign at a certain amount. By the way, this is all conjecture. This is not anti-Leicester Tigers. I'm just trying to work out how he ends up a sale. And they're saying he's gone on pay. Some saying he's going to get paid as little as £200,000 a season. So you're thinking, where on earth is this possible? Now, one of the reasons that might be possible, and you alerted it to me before we started this conversation, is there might be a legal loophole that wherever Manu goes, he has a legal ability to go back to Tigers and say, no, I've got a deal for X with you. You weren't prepared to pay. I've gone elsewhere for Y. You have to make up the difference between X and Y. I mean, it'd been extraordinary. There was a time, I think, when is it Kuehl, who used to be Leeds United footballer, was at Liverpool. He went to Leeds, and Man City. He was at City. I think Man City was still paying 90 grand a week, and he'd left there 3 years ago. So that's sort of possible in football. That, again, conjecture, reading, and maybe adding 2 and 2 up. But it may be that he's prepared to go to Sale because he's fallen out with Leicester Tigers, but we'll get the money back from Leicester Tigers. We'll keep his England career open. We'll be able to go on the British and Irish landscape. He would literally be baking the cake, adding extra ingredients, eating it himself, and going, ding, dang, do, life is rosy. Going to a team, by the way, who are second in the title, could push on. Instead of being 11th with Leicester Tigers, saved from relegation by Saracens having been docked 4 million points. What a change of landscape he's gone. And so That's the positive side. The positive side
Sure.
for Tigers might be, actually, we've not ever had enough value for money out of him in the first place. Actually, it's okay if he leaves, as long as we don't get stuck with a legal bill to make up his wages and Sailor only, and Steve Diamond decides to pay him 10 quid a week, knowing that Leicester Tigers have to make up the difference.
Yeah.
Have I overcomplicated stuff, or has that made sense?
No, well, I guess the truth will out in time, won't it? But that's the understanding that we take from this. We did believe that there might have been a legal loophole, a contractual obligation of the Tigers to make up any shortcoming that he experiences if he stays in England. We'll wait and see if that is taken up. But it seems like the baker with the big white hat on and stirring this cake mix that you're talking about is Steve Diamond. I mean, I'm reading that he reached out to the Tigers and to Manu's agent as little as a week ago to have it confirmed that he was indeed a free agent and he was indeed able. So maybe the other Premiership DORs and executives around the country are thinking to themselves, whoa, we could have done something similar. We could have had, if we had the foresight to do so.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this would come from, again, Steve Diamond's fantastic relationship, I was going to say, with Jason Orange, but he's the member of Take That. It's actually his brother who owns Sale Sharks. It's Simon Orange. So he's got a really good, and he's nimble and he's quick. And look, I've played with Steve for many years. He's a dealer. He's a trader. It's called arbitrage. It's like, if it's an opportunity, just do it and work out the cost after. If you see value, if you see an ability to pick up a world-class player for less than what he's worth, because there's an ability to recoup the money somewhere else, Steve Diamond is that sort of boss who would roll the dice. 6 months later might go, but at the time he gets more right than he gets wrong, and he'll have a go. So it's quite interesting that you say that, and what was going on with COVID-19 but Leicester Tigers were, from what I'm led to believe, they played it pretty fast and loose late on, from going from one position to, you've all got to sign by next Tuesday, otherwise there is no deal. So it was always going to be a very different environment to the way club moves are normally sorted out. And I also listened to Ben Youngs as well. Sorry, I didn't listen. I read Ben Youngs' quotes. And he talked about the fact that the Tuilagis have given 20, 25 years service to Leicester Tigers. It is an absolute dynasty. They are cult heroes. They like it rough and tough, the Leicester Tigers. They like big, strong, burly packs. And when they can find big, strong, burly backs, I mean, Stuart Potter is one of the kings of the midfield. I loved playing with Stuart, and he was just, bang, I'm going forward. That's always, historically, no matter what's happened with all this sort of fancier rugby that's gone wrong with 35 phase rugby. No, it started with letters A, B, and C, Cockerell, Garforth, and Roundtree. And if it went past them, no one was really bothered. So, but in amongst that, Manu's become the Tuilagis have become a hero. So Ben was like, you know what? It is what it is. And rugby players are becoming now. There used to be such a stigma. You're moving. Oh, you traitor. What are you doing? Moving. It's like, no. That's in the old days when your whole family lived there, and your mum and your dad worked at the insurance firm that was attached to the club, and everyone was interconnected. Now it's such a global sport. We've heard today that Hawaii might have a team in the American franchise. So he's going. I'm trying to work out how long it's about an hour and a half journey. He'd nip across my favourite road ever, by the way, the A50 that goes through Utoxeter. It's the unknown bypass that cuts you from the M1 to the M6. I mean, that's where he's going. So super easy for him. Anyway, we're digressing. Fast, nimble, Diamond, always prepared to gamble, to take a punt. Sale, really bullish owner about where they can go, and they can be the absolute flagship, the North Star of Northern rugby, and boss it and own it. Manu gets to stay in England. Leicester, let's put the best possible spin on it. They remove a large chunk of wages from their salary cap from someone who, through no fault of his own, hasn't played as much rugby as he would have liked. You can spin this in a way where everyone wins. The reality, over the course of the next 7 days, things will come out and we'll find out exactly what's happened and who are the real winners and losers.
Well, a couple of other things to consider with all of this. We talk about the age of Manu and his injury-prone recent years. He is 29 years of age. This deal takes him through to the end of the 2020-2021 season. which sounds further away than it actually is, because of course we're about to finish the 1920 season. We're going to do that in double quick time. And then we're going to flick our boots, have a shower, change, and go again for 2020-21. He'll only be 30 when this deal comes to an end. Maybe his representatives, maybe Manu himself, maybe Steve Diamond has sort of said, look, come, play for the national team, stay involved in that respect for the at least next 12 months. Make the British and Irish Lions, play for a winning premiership team, see where the world is in 12 months, which is literally when the end of this deal is going to go to. And then maybe we can reconsider. Maybe then you take your one big last deal, which might at that point be in France.
Yeah, brilliant. Far briefer summary than I could ever possibly hope to do. I think that's spot on. When I was coming on here, I thought, where does this leave Manu? Fantastic. English club, play for England, go on the Lions tour, see how his body holds up, and then make a decision. Flagging a little bit, lost a little bit. He's had adductor and hamstrings that, once they go, and groins, it's so difficult to be as powerful as you were, and yet he has come back that powerful. They start a little bit of wear and tear, then potentially he might have to remove himself from the international scene, play club, and if he was just doing club, then his head would certainly get turned to go abroad. But in the form he was in the World Cup, and the powerful nature of his frame, it looks in the short term like a fantastic signing for Sale Sharks, and a really good opportunity. I mean, if you'd said to Manu, you might end up winning the Premiership this year. I mean, 4 months ago, before Saracens were relegated, he was thinking about, I need to get out of Tigers because I could be in the Championship. So, I think sort of that's where we are. And I don't honestly begrudge any player now, especially in the climate, just looking after his own bubble. I understand, I appreciate loyalty, I appreciate club loyalty, and a lot of players are, but different strokes for different players, and one cap doesn't fit all. People are at different stages of their career and need to do different things at different times. This, as I said, this sounds like a literally made in heaven deal for Manu to play in a really good team that's really confident at the moment.
We could very well see him in the first return fixture post COVID-19 as the Sharks travel down to the Twickenham Stoop to take on Harlequins on August the 14th. Sitting second in the Premiership log, 5 points adrift of Exeter Chiefs. There's any number of ramifications of this transfer, which on the surface strikes as a pretty historic move for an England player internally.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying we've been slow. It's just something that hasn't been part of our game of rugby. We've had big rugby league signings. Jason Robinson. I know Inga Twigamala was an All Black before he became a Wigan player. Then he went to Wasps and then Newcastle. I sort of get that. But actually, internal, between intra-club monster shifts, tended to have gone abroad, Johnny to Toulon, these sorts of signings. I wouldn't quite say it's a seminal moment, but it might be the herald of player movement between clubs that we haven't seen before. And if you think about Leicester Tigers, I've got so many mates at Tigers, and the second they hear me say the waning Leicester Tigers, I'll be bombarded with social media stuff. But the way the Tigers, who have been drifting, and they'll hope Borthwick will change that trajectory for their club. They've been at the top forever, haven't they? I mean, forever. They made the playoffs 14 consecutive years, won the Heineken Cup a couple of times. They're drifting a little bit. And Sale, who've flirted in cups, but and of course 2006, I think, won the Premiership, Shabal and Quato, but they've been off the pace a little bit. I'm trying to compare. It's a bit like a Man United player going to a Leicester City player. I sort of use Leicester City because they're up there and haven't been up there and are in and around it. It's sort of Pogba or Rashford going up the road. And if this would have Jim out with his yellow tie, going apoplectic and pukes with excitement. So that's sort of where we are. That's why there's a level of excitement in the Greenwood household about this sort of move that we don't really see that often in the English Premiership.